I think a lot of men need to hear this. You're not ugly. You're not dangerous. You're not creepy. You are a decent person, a decent man born in an indecent time. This whole thing with the male loneliness epidemic, as they say, I think has a lot of misunderstandings around it. Number one thing is, I believe that men should have a support network. Now, not a bunch of friends who are up to no good, not a bunch of friends who are going to drag you down, but people who are naturally going to lift you up, have your best interests in mind. People where you can be yourself around and be vulnerable around it and not worry about it backfiring. So, with modern culture, I think a lot of people, especially if you're a good person, if you're a decent person, you are going to attract narcissists. You are going to attract users. And I believe a side effect of a lot of these kind of traumatic, manipulative friendships is people shell up and, in a way, causing loneliness. Again, from being a good, decent person. Now, my thing is this, right? I've talked about in previous videos, dealing with narcissists. I was a lot younger and a lot more naive at a time. And when you have less experience with relationships, with friendships, you're a lot more susceptible to be taken advantage of by these kind of characters because you quite frankly don't know any better. You don't have the discernment. But with experience comes that discernment. I mean, pretty much everyone I've talked to has dealt with a narcissist in some form, whether it's a coworker, family member, friendship, relationship. They've dealt with some form of a narcissist, of a user, of a taker, of a manipulator. It's important to remember that because I was there too, shelled up and didn't want anything to do with anyone. It took a number of months to years to really be more open to the idea of getting to know new people. But it's a serious side effect a lot of good people run into when trying to make friendships. And I totally get it, guys, but the reality is we shouldn't lose that optimism. We still should strive to have some form of community and a support network. Keep your circle small, but just make sure the people around you are very like-minded and good people. I'll put it that way. And the other thing where I think decent men struggle with is that modern culture right now, with the social media, rewards a lot of flashiness and controversy. You see so many people that have act like complete clowns on social media, and they just go viral and people want to emulate them and people want to talk about them. And my thing is this: I understand times change. I understand that. But that's certainly not how things should be. I mean, let's be honest. In no sense of the world is that normal behavior. So when people see that, good people, they don't want to be part of the flashiness. They don't want to be part of controversy for attention. They want to do the right thing. They want sincere, real conversations, not little kind of surface level interactions like we see on social media. Not things that are very, things that lack meaning and purpose. So with the social media stuff, my take is this, because with the flashiness, I think it's good to have nice stuff. Of course, I think it's good to treat yourself. I think it's good, quite frankly, it's something I wish I would do. And, because I still got time, and even when I was younger, is treat myself more, to be completely honest. But with that, people need to understand that those material things don't leave this earth with you. That's the truth. From the moment we're born, the only thing that we are guaranteed in this life is the inevitable. And once that happens, those material things do not leave this earth with you. So it's good to appreciate stuff. It's good to use it to uplift other people. But this whole flexing culture, I find very bizarre. And it seemed to become very prominent around, I would say, 2015, 2016. I remember that there was a song, I can't remember the name of the song, but I believe it was Chris Brown was featured in the song, and it was a line in the song, something like, I make in a year, or it was I make in a week what you make in a year, or something like that, right? Just a line in the song. And I understand some people could argue, oh, it's art, no, it's this and that, it's music. But the reality is, guys, pop culture does influence people. They're going to want to emulate it. They're going to want to, you look at trending styles and stuff like that. I mean, it does have an effect on people. The music does. And my thing is this: that message is being instilled in young people with the music, with a lot of stuff. It's not just the music. It's a very unhealthy thing, this kind of flexing culture. I don't know exactly where that came from, where it started. Again, I think it's good to use that as drive and inspire people to show, okay, you can get this if you're successful. But to just degrade people, to essentially talk down to them because you have a more expensive watch or a more expensive car. I mean, that is so pathetic to me. I have met stand-up people, some of the most decent people, who are not people who are financially abundant, people who, quite frankly, struggled their whole lives. Whereas I've met people who do have a lot of money who are very sleazy and very dishonest. So that doesn't make a man at all. That doesn't make anything, quite frankly. It's something a lot of times I think to mask insecurity. So with that too is with the modern dating stuff, because I will touch on dating, because when people talk about male loneliness, they talk about dating. I think it's a lot more than dating, but I will touch on dating. So I myself, having dealt with relationships and friendships as well, because this can relate to those as well, under the age of 30, people under the age of 30, I noticed ghosting, very common. People being very flaky. And look, I understand if something comes up, but there's been many times in my life where you'll make plans and there'll be no heads up, no, oh, hey, something came up, no, hey, I'm feeling sick, no, nothing. They'll just ghost you. You'll try to call them once, twice, 3 times, and it'll go to voicemail. And when good people, when decent people see that, they're just like, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's disrespectful, it's disregarding. And usually, guys, when that happens, I make an effort, unless, I understand things can happen, there can be emergencies, but I usually don't make much of an effort to reach out to that friend or relationship or whatever it might be against. I'm like, why am I investing in something that is disproportionately against my favor? You see what I'm saying? So with the other stuff too is sleeping around, right? Which is becoming a lot more common. Good, decent people generally are not going to want to engage in that. That's just the truth. They're going to want to look for something more sincere. They're going to look for relationships, long-term stuff like that, things that can eventually lead to marriage, which I've touched on this previously. From a traditional standpoint, I am a very big proponent. I think it's beautiful if a man and a woman can come together and bring a child into this world and raise a child, especially as a man, as a father, to raise a child to not repeat the same mistakes that they made and give that wisdom to the kid. But I've heard a lot of horror stories and witnessed a lot of horror stories when it comes to marriage and relationships. And again, it's not good to be paranoid. It's not good to be closed-minded, but it's becoming more common than not. I believe the divorce rate for first-time marriages is around 50% overall. So second-time marriage, it's actually, I believe, around 60%. Again, don't quote me on that. But I myself know many men who have had kids and been married that warn me and tell me to not get married. Tell me to, which again, I don't like generally using anecdotal evidence to generalize, but it seems like it's a common occurrence. So with the ghosting, with the sleeping around, with the horror stories, I think a lot of good people are in a confused spot right now. Because at the same time, you don't want to be celibate, you don't want to be lonely. I understand that. But you just have to have very, very, very good discernment, which unfortunately, I think a lot of that is going to have to come with experience. You might deal with a crappy girlfriend or crappy friend. That's just the reality. I mean, again, from the age of around 15 to 25, 26, the amount of crappy friendships and relationships I dealt with, quite frankly, I've lost count. I've cut off so many people over the past few years. So I just think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to this whole topic. And I am open to actually hear other people. And I do want to make videos down the line touching on dating and relationships. I do think it is a very relevant topic. But with good men, I think that this, what's the best way I can word it? I'll put it this way. This lack of humility we see in the culture, this less and less empathy and more narcissism, I'll put it that way. Because I believe that narcissism is on the rise. I'm not saying everyone's becoming a full-blown narcissist, but narcissistic tendencies certainly seem to be becoming, or to have become, a lot more common. And I don't know if it's the social media, whether it's spiritual, there's something going on behind it, certainly. And Of course, in the Bible, it does talk about good people and suffering and on this earth, and I'm a believer in that. But at the end of the day, I don't like seeing so many good people, so many decent people being unhappy when they're doing all the right things. And I don't want this to turn into a negative video because there's enough doom and gloom out there, but the best thing I can say is do your best to find a support network of people who do have your best interests. And it might take time, but through experience and discernment, you'll be able to notice those people. When it comes to this kind of social media stuff, guys, I'll be honest, I think we'd all just be better off getting off this stuff. I really do. All these apps, dating apps, I didn't even get into that. I mean, how shallow and surface level is that? Swiping and dismissing someone based on, what, a picture or something they have in their bio. Half the time they flake and ghost. And I've personally known people who use dating apps. They've told me straight up that they will use them to just get attention and validation. Have no plans to date, no plans to meet up, nothing. But just get off on, oh, look at how many people swiped on me. Wow, look at this. My ego's really out of control now, which, again, that's some different entirely. But we're at a time right now where decent men, good men, are just looking around and wanting nothing to do with this. And the thing is, too, I'll put it this way. Most people are decent people. Most people have a set of morals. Me, as a believer in Christ, I have my own set of morals. I try to live to the best of my ability in a godly way. I'm as much of a sinner as anyone else. But and I think this is really important to remember, is that most people are decent people with a moral compass that understand right from wrong. They might not always do right from wrong, but they understand right from wrong. I mean, think about how many people you guys have talked to about social media. Pretty much everyone I've spoke to about social media admits it's toxic, but they don't get off of it. People mutually need to kind of come together and be like, look, at the end of the day, we're not that different in terms of the way we think. It's just that we're so caught up in this kind of toxic culture that rewards narcissism, that rewards acting like a controversial clown, that rewards flashiness, that rewards degenerate behavior. I think that's really the cause of male loneliness. Because if you're a good, decent person looking at that from the outside, you're not going to want to have anything to do with it. And even with being alone, there's been many times in my life where I think I can handle it pretty well, because there's been times in my life where I was really to myself, although they weren't times where I was happy. But I worked hard and worked on ways to get out of that kind of mindset and get out of those kind of positions. And I do think as you get older as well, it does become harder and harder to make friends. It's important to have people that you can fall back on. You know, and again, not everyone has a big family, not everyone has siblings, not everyone has, which if you're lucky enough to have your parents and grandparents in your life, which again, even I've heard horror stories even with family members. I've heard of narcissistic family members. But it's just important to keep the people close to you that are going to be there for you, that are not going to make you feel like these problems that I just mentioned do with this modern society nonsense, the toxicity garbage, the narcs out there, which, yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for viewing. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.